I'm joined by Council President Helen Hudson and Councilor of the 4th District, Latoya Allen. So the point of this meeting today is to gather, well, I guess backing up, prior to last year, the city of Syracuse did not have a very robust participation of food trucks, and which obviously was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, for the city, because it is something that's very popular with residents. It's something that is an amenity that a lot of people are looking for, as well as a source of entrepreneurship. So knowing that, we wanted to look at the laws and look what the best practices were around the country to figure out what we could do to improve that. But we also understood that it was going to be something that was going to evolve over time, that there's going to be feedback, there was going to be participation or non-participation. So we wanted it to be something where we would revisit it and figure out what the best process would be going forward. So that's really what the point of this is today, is to figure out, 1 year in, what worked, what didn't work. There isn't a specific piece of legislation that we're proposing. We just want to get feedback to figure out, going in the years forward, what makes the most sense. So we're really just here to hear from people. So if you would like to speak, you can, in the back corner, you can pick up a card and then sign up. So we'll just open it. I've suggested limiting it to 3 minutes. If there's not a lot of speakers, obviously we can go a little longer than that, but we'll start out with 3 minutes and take it from there. So the first one is Kyle Madden. So when you come up, just say your name, say the street you live on, and if you're associated with the business, just let us know that too.
Hi, councilors. Kyle Madden, Sassy Taco Food Truck. I live here in the city of Syracuse at 517 Robino Road. Thank you, Councilor Green, for convening this and for upholding your promise from last year that you would do so. Councilor President Hudson, Councilor Allen, thank you for being here. I think this is an important conversation. We're here today to talk about economic opportunity, and it's specifically how we can expand that economic opportunity for the nearly 36 small businesses which operate as mobile food vendors in and around the city of Syracuse. As Councilor Green stated, we had a program in the past which was not particularly robust. Food trucks were not particularly participating. We saw annual participation of maybe 1-2 trucks. This past year, we did see an increase because of some of the law changes that you all approved unanimously last year. Specifically, those law changes reduced the permit cost from $1,500 to $500. That's much more palatable. I think that food trucks found that to be much more reasonable. We also expanded the locations. We originally had 7 specific locations around the downtown area. Those 7 locations were scrapped in favor of a series of blocks throughout the city where food trucks could operate on a first-come, first-served basis. My experience of year 1 was that it was a step in the right direction. However, I think that it's important that we do more. Food trucks have a heavy reliance on foot traffic to be successful. We often try to piggyback off of other events going on at established businesses, bars, restaurants, etc. And we've been very successful in doing that. However, when it comes to the downtown market, we do rely on, shouldn't say the downtown market, but the city and Syracuse in general, we rely on foot traffic largely to generate a lot of our business. We can also use social media and word of mouth to get the word out about where we are, but that is a kind of a tertiary way of doing so. Ultimately, I think this council oftentimes takes a lot of cues from other cities, particularly in upstate, and I think that there are some best practices that we can look at in other cities that might be beneficial to us here in Syracuse. Specifically as it relates to price, we're about in the middle. We might actually be slightly lower than some of the others, but some of the best practices of the others I think make it more valuable. So I think potentially that there's an opportunity to potentially raise the cost if we make some concessions on some of the other pieces. As it relates to blocks and locations where we can park, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle for us. We, again, rely on foot traffic, and so we're really looking, at least myself, and I won't speak for the others, but we rely on that foot traffic, and that traffic is in the downtown central business district and in the university area. Outside of those areas, I don't particularly have much in the way of interest in participating in any on-street program. I just don't think that it would be valuable enough for us. The locations that were set last year, I think, while good intentioned, unfortunately, potentially were not thought out terribly well. As it relates to the downtown locations in particular, Council, can I continue for just a moment?
Yeah, just wrap up. We can come back to you too. I
Sure.
just want to make sure.
So as the locations last year, I think they were well intentioned, but if you actually look at them, most of them have no stopping anytime signs. For instance, Adams Street, Townsend Street, these are locations that were codified as locations where we can park, but there's literally nowhere to park. So once you look at the downtown locations, it actually represents approximately 9 blocks. It says we can park on both sides of those blocks, so it should open up 18 sides of the street. You might be able to get 50 cars in those spaces that are actually available. Considering the size of our trucks, it needs to be at least 2 spaces to fit us in, so it would be really tricky. As I mentioned, best practices, one of the things Rochester does is they've designated 10 specific locations, and this is kind of going back to what we did in the past. They designate specific locations for food trucks only. Vehicles otherwise cannot park there, but they have space for between 2 and 5 trucks. So it allows us to have a little bit of a little friendly competition. It creates a little bit of a buzz. It creates an exciting atmosphere to it. And they've been very successful there with that program. Oftentimes trucks are there early in the morning to reserve those spaces. They are on a first come, first served basis, but the trucks are participating and taking advantage, and the people who are eating at those trucks appreciate it and are going back. So I think that something along those lines, kind of merging the past system with the present, would be the best path forward. But short of that, I think that it's important that we expand the number of blocks available and potentially just eliminate some of these that don't make sense, that aren't places where we can park, just to clean up the ordinance. But ultimately, I think that we're going to see a decrease in revenue next year. I don't think that the trucks found it as valuable as we would hope. I won't speak for others, but personally, I'm kind of at a question mark right now as to whether or not I'll participate in this program next year. So I'll leave it there. I suspect there's be some other questions and comments from others, and if there's something else I can add, I'll pop back up. Thank you.
Okay. Francesc Mari.
Hi, good morning. My name is Francesc Marie. I'm the owner of Pronto Fresh. We are located here in Hanover Square. And even though that we think that food trucks is a very nice thing for the residents and the people that work downtown, for us that we are right next to Clinton Square, where we had food trucks this year, is impacting in our business tremendously. This year, only 4 restaurants in a block away from Clinton Square or less have closed. So that's for different reasons, but in 1 year have closed 4 restaurants in a block away from Clinton Square. I think it's a great impact for all of us that we are in like close distance to Clinton Square, and we propose that food trucks would be maybe once a month, once every other month in that location, and maybe move around downtown a little bit more, that not all the restaurants close by to Clinton Square get the impact every week. We already have the impact on the Tuesday's farmers market, that we already have food trucks there, and all the downtown holidays and events that are happening is affecting us. So even though that we think it's a nice thing for the city, we think that we should spread it a little bit, and in different areas. That's pretty much all I have to say and report today. Again, I'm not complaining about the food trucks. I think it's a good thing, and I want to make sure that this left clear. But I think it's important that we protect the bricks and mortar restaurants in the downtown that are here through the whole winter, that it's already tough for us. Thank you very much.
What were the 4 that closed?
So recently, in the past couple months, Nico's have closed. Nick's Place have closed. That's in the M&T building. It's like less than a block away. Right in the Atrium building, it was a place that didn't last too long at all. Of course, right now I cannot remember the name, but inside the Atrium.
In the atrium. Okay, yeah.
In the Atrium building, right by the and the subway as well. So 4 of them.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you
very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Don Beaudry.
Good morning. My name is Don Boudre. I'm the owner-operator of Cluckenberger Food Truck. And also I am the president of Central New York's Food Truck Alliance, which is a nonprofit that represents 19 other food trucks here in Central New York. And first I'd like to say is I have some friends in this room here, and John Vigliotti and Pronto Fresh. I've eaten at their establishments. His probably within the last year since I've been down at Clinton Square. Either every morning on my way when I set up, I either walk to the Water Street Bagel, or I'll stop at his place on the way home. And I always support a downtown business. John Vigliotti, I've been supporting his business since 70s, 80s over on Grant. So I think it's very important that their voice is heard here, is that they are brick and mortars, they are established downtown. And as a food truck, although it's great to come in, I know with our members is our goal is not to hurt the downtown businesses. And I think it's very important that we say that, is that our goal was to provide an opportunity for downtown employees, businesses, to be able to get to know our food trucks and to be able to just have something different. And I really never thought about it until this gentleman shared it, but I think it's a great idea. Clinton Square is every Wednesday. And I know in the beginning when we started, we were pulling almost 1,000 people to Clinton Square. And they were coming from all over downtown, the outskirts, and sometimes people were coming from as far as the suburbs just to come down and eat at specific trucks, like the Chicken Bandit, Cluckenberger, Sassy Taco. So, but with those businesses, or those customers, I think it's very important is when they're coming from the outlying areas, and it's a known fact, is that food trucks draw people to the local economy. So they may have had to park 4 or 5 blocks down the road, but they were walking by on a Wednesday different places like Pronto Fresh, like Nico's, like Water Street Bagel. And that might have been the first time that they saw these local businesses downtown, and it generated them to come back to try them maybe throughout the week. So I think that's really important. What I really like to discuss is that I know myself and 4 of our other members, we had paid for the $500 permit, and none of us used the permit for anywhere but Clinton Square, which when we paid to rent Clinton Square for Wednesdays, we paid for the street closure, we paid for the permit. Technically, we didn't need to pay for the $500 permit because it really wasn't feasible for us to go park at one of the other locations that were open because of number one reason was the accessibility of these spots in and around downtown. It's you would show up at a spot and there's 2-3 cars there. Now, yes, that is a spot that a food truck can park, but will I be that person to pick up code and call code enforcement to have someone towed out of a spot that might have been running in for an appointment? That's personally, as Cluckenberger, I wouldn't do that. But I think what we could do is we could better utilize the spots, like Kyle Madden has said, is to be able to open up spots downtown that are food truck spots only. Rochester does a great thing. Again, they have 10 spots, and they have pop-ups, and I think that's important. There's a lot of value to bring food trucks into the economy, and I'll speak for myself, is that my food truck, I know that I put money back in the local economy. I know that since I started a push cart back in 2016 as a DBA, I now have an S corporation. I have 2 brick and mortar locations now. One of them out in Beeville, one of them is out in Cicero, and I employ several people. So it creates jobs in the community, the food trucks, and I think it's important. But at the same time, we have to respect our other neighbors when we do come in the city. And I really like the idea of moving them different locations and possibly providing opportunities, maybe even in the evenings, for us to come downtown. All right?
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know, maybe one of you can answer this. Because we know that Syracuse is going through a transformation right now. So we're going to have a lot of different pockets of businesses throughout the city. So you don't see the value in, I know you said, Kyle, the university in downtown. But we know that the South Salina Street corridor going south is going to be emerging. So what would happen then?
No food truck operator is going to tell you that you shouldn't add additional locations wherever you think that they're valuable. Ultimately for us, I think that the main factor in determining where we go is foot traffic. And as long as there's heavy foot traffic, I think it's an area of potential consideration for us. I think that the way that we are going to operate right now, the way that I'll operate this upcoming year, is pretty much exclusive to the downtown area. I think that particularly the lunchtime area downtown is the best opportunity for us. But I don't know of any of the food trucks who are going to say don't add
For
an
right
area.
now, though, right? They're the best locations for you for right now.
I would say that to be the case. Yes. Yeah. Will that change as Syracuse changes? Possibly, yes, of course. I don't think that Syracuse is going to have 200,000 residents within 5 years. I think that'd be
We
cool.
may not have 200,000 residents, but we have a whole lot of workers on the highway. But anyway,
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I'm with you. We've been over this 100 times. I'm a tear it down guy too, but it's going to be a couple of years down the road before that happens. Could that present an opportunity? Yes. Is that going to be a long-term opportunity? I don't know. What will the impact of that ultimate decision have on the future of Syracuse, I think, is yet to be seen. But ultimately, at some point, I hope to see mixed use and food trucks up and down Almond Street the entire way. But I think we are still yet a couple of years off from that. So yeah, I think ultimately we'd all be supportive of additional locations. You're welcome to add others. I think that this is something that we should revisit regularly, maybe not annually, but maybe every 2 years or so, to take a look at where we are and how things need to change. But I think, again, I think there are some other cities in upstate that are doing some things right, and I think that we should take a look at those as ways, best practices.
America? And then if anyone else, I've got one card after that, so if anyone else wants to speak, just find Jimmy and get a card.
Thank you. My name is Marika Trier. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Committee of Syracuse, and first I want to say I appreciate that you're hosting this meeting. I know this is an exciting event for downtown employees, and so with downtown, I think we need to, specific to this issue, find the balance. We've heard a number of the food trucks commenting about how foot traffic is a main reason why they're wanting to be in certain locations, and I think the novelty of food trucks is of great appeal to our community. It helps showcase the diversity of skills and talents and culinary genius that we have here within our community. But we also have to be mindful of those bricks and mortar businesses that are the reason we have that foot traffic to begin with. So I want to thank Francois and then also John, because without those restaurants, we wouldn't have that level of activity in downtown. And so I'm asking if we can find some time to set up some more discussions about how to find that right balance. Having it in Clinton Square, again, is the center of our downtown community, but that location also butts up against a number of established downtown businesses. And so I know last year we heard from a number of them who expressed concern that their business was down 40 to 60% on the days of the food truck rodeos. I know some have emailed you, Councilor Green, directly because this time slot is challenging for a lunch business to make it to a public hearing when they're also trying to run our business. We have a number of our downtown businesses that are owner-operated, and so that's what gives us our uniqueness and that personality and that level of customer service. So we did encourage them, if they were unable to make today's meeting, that they did reach out to you with specific comments. We talked a couple times about best practices from other communities. We've done the research. We'd be happy to share with you what other upstate and national communities do as far as balancing the food trucks and brick and mortar, because this is not a new issue to Syracuse, but there are some best practices in other communities where they've put different distance requirements in. Many of our upstate counterparts have a distance of 250 minimum feet from an established restaurateur to help prevent the competition, or if they're looking to locate closer, they have to get the sign off from those different businesses. Also, location chosen, I think, plays a big part. I think food trucks are a novelty, and they do a lot to create a reason, an excuse for people to come out of their office buildings. But oftentimes they're used to activate an underutilized area. So finding a space that's more like a food desert where you don't have that competition. I think, Councilor Hudson, you mentioned a number of different opportunities we're going to have with new construction coming down the pipeline. I think there's opportunity to create events around those different locations, not only to show off a different part of the neighborhood, but also to create that density of food truck business where you're not in direct competition with a number of our other lunch establishments. Another item that we've heard is our downtown businesses, they pay rent to be in their location, which goes into property taxes. They also have to pay for the sidewalk cafe permits. They also need to pay for their certificate of use and their business license. So they're paying to be here year round. And so when we hear that their business is down because of different events or programs, that's concerning. I think is a strong indicator that we need to get together to find out what's going to be a nice balance to not only support our bricks and mortar businesses, but also to allow the entrepreneurs to thrive in our community. Oh, it's okay. I didn't know if there was a question. I guess the only other comment would be, again, hopeful that we can get together with some of our downtown bricks and mortar businesses as well as any other university neighborhoods. But again, we've heard a lot of focus on the downtown community today, so I think it would be beneficial for all of us to hear the different perspectives and figure out what's going to be the right balance that we can strike between our bricks and mortar restaurants as well as the food truck operators.
America, let me ask you a question. I'm not talking about the $500 fee. But do we have any sense, being you're the downtown committee, of what was the revenue that came in from the food trucks?
Revenue from
as far as the sale of what they sold, because I know we have the tax off of sales. Do we have that number?
I don't have the revenue for what the food truck sold. We did hear from our businesses about the revenue that was lost during the Food Truck Wednesdays.
Frank Kaliva? No.
He's here.
Frank Kaliva?
Frank Kaliva, yes. You're up.
She's asking if you knew anything about that.
Do we have the revenue of what the food trucks
We
did?
don't provide that information to the city.
We don't, we don't. We would try to get it, President Hudson, from the sales tax information, but that comes in bulk. Okay. So it's not broken down in any way. We've talked to the county, and the county's talked to the state, but that's the way the county receives it from the state as well.
So we can't separate it, okay.
Can I ask on the sales tax front, so when you file your...
John, can you come to the mic? We have the sheriff for the kids at home.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're
John
good, bud.
Pepino's got 409 South Clinton Street. Sorry, I got to wear a mouth guard. But on the subject of sales tax, you're paying it in bulk, which means you're paying it to an address, to a zip code. So when you're doing business in the city, do you have a separate EID number that is that money is going towards the city side of the sales tax, or do you have one in your corporation, in your business that's in Cicero? Or
We do sharing with the county anyway, so it doesn't, whether or not you're selling it in the city or not, it doesn't affect the city revenue of the sales tax.
is it a 50 split?
No, that's a whole other issue. But yeah, basically we're shared with the county, so it's not like if they're in Camillus or Syracuse, it affects
Right,
the
and
city.
then they'd have the option to just disclose their sales, but obviously, for reasons I'm sure you don't want to on your Wednesday sales.
John, you're up now. Do you
Am I
want
up?
to just stay
Okay.
up? Yeah.
One, I want to say, I'm John Vigilante again, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity that we didn't really have last year, so, or at least I wasn't aware of. I'm a fan of food trucks. I mean, they bring unique styles. They're great, culinary, passionate people, and as a consumer, it brings a really cool atmosphere, something to do, something different. A lot of these trucks are doing things that are different that aren't in the restaurants. 100% agree, and that's sort of part of the problem, right? From my vantage point, and a lot of people have brought up a lot of the same similar things, and I keep hearing about foot traffic and location. Okay, we had legislation to give them the discount of $500 or $1,000, right? In our world, in the brick and mortar world, the best traffic location, you pay a premium. You don't get a discount. See how we're backwards here? We want the best traffic area. I'm going to repeat, he said we're going to feed off of other restaurants, and we want a discount. Now, if I want that heavy traffic, I'm going to pay a premium, 365 days a year.
So just to clarify, John, the permit fee is the fee to operate in the whole city of Syracuse. It wasn't a Clinton Square fee?
It's even worse. Okay? It's even worse. You can go throughout the city and we're going to give you $1,000 off. You can go wherever you want and you're going to pick all the best high traffic locations, not just Clinton Square, which is one, okay? And the other thing, it's not as bad as if when there's, push carts and there's food trucks here and there and spread out throughout the city. What happened is, just like I talked earlier, food trucks are cool and they do really good food. And you put them in one location, you created a destination, right? You created an event, which is going to draw. We're not, you can't look at this and compare it to Rochester. That's a much sprawling city, much more dense in terms of population. So they're not apples for apples, okay? And you can't look at it in terms of, your basic economics. We're looking at a captive audience, right? The downtown workforce. This isn't a bustling city with random traffic going in and out. And, you said you were going to get some surveys and do some numbers, and if you did, that'd be great. I'd love to look at them. But I don't buy somebody driving into downtown, driving around looking for a parking spot, pay $5 for an $8 lunch. God forbid you get a ticket, right? I don't see it. And if that is the case, why do you need the high traffic location? Why don't you go in the desert in the corner somewhere since you're a draw? Why do you need the heavy traffic location? So it's contradictory. We're looking at this in a different, scope. It's a different business model. A lot of the things that go on aren't apples for apples in comparison, even with business and just logic, basic numbers. Supply and demand, the captive audience, basically, and especially a lot of the ones that the gentleman said that closed this past year are lunch businesses, okay, that primarily work on a 5-day work week, 5 lunches. Farmers market, which I think is a great thing. Then you got festivals every so often, every 2 or so Fridays. Festivals are incredible for our city, and I truly believe that. The sights, the sounds, they truly draw in from downtown. They do walk 4 or 5 blocks. I've got people coming at, Taste of Syracuse, they're parking up near Rocky's News to get here. And, festivals and shows have the ability to get what I call never downtowners to come downtown. You talk to people, and they're, I don't go downtown. Well, I don't go downtown. But, all of a sudden we draw them down here with a festival or a show, and we can give them that experience where all of a sudden they do go downtown. I don't see the food trucks as doing that. As positive as they are, and I'm not going to argue all the great things that a food truck rally does. I'm not going to argue, and I agree 100%, but that's part of the problem. We're working with a already shrinking workforce. Yeah, there's a lot of construction downtown. It's residential. They're at work. They're not coming out for lunch. And if they work downtown, they're going to come out for lunch, but then we're creating a destination, right? We're creating where to meet. People from 3 blocks that way, 3 blocks that way are meeting, which is great, but it doesn't do well for the established restaurants that are in and around the area that are clearly being drawn from. They're getting 1,000, 1,200 people traffic. Where's that traffic coming from? Those are dollars that are going to be spent. We're just taking the money and we're distributing it differently. We're not bringing new money in. So besides aesthetics and the cool factor, I don't see the benefit for this city. And it clearly isn't a benefit for any of the folks that are here 365 days a week. We have a really bad weather on Wednesday. They don't show up. They don't show up. We show up, right? We show up, we battle, right? We got to tough through it. We sit there, snowstorm, we 365 days a year, we have a different playbook. And it's not even. And it's not fair. The city doesn't have the downtown population to absorb a food truck rally. Food truck here, food truck there, food truck wherever, I don't have anything against that. But to create a destination already in a 5-day work week that many weeks already has 2, that I don't believe should change. You have throw in another bad weather day. You got some guys trying to make it on 1 lunch for the week.
Thanks, John.
You got it.
Anyone else like to speak? Sure, go ahead.
Don Beaudry again, Cluckenberg. I think, John, you're absolutely right. And the key with that is what we're here for is what was implemented at the beginning of the year and how did it work out. And obviously, if you ask a restaurant owner, they're going to tell you it didn't work out really well. Because he's absolutely right. You have a festival that goes on from a Friday to a Sunday. Monday typically break down. Downtown committee brings in 1 or 2 food trucks for the farmers market. That pulls away from a downtown restaurant. Then we come in on Wednesday with 6 trucks blazing, and that pulls away. And I agree with them 100%. What we're looking at from our point of view, and I'm speaking of our Food Truck Alliance, is how do we open up other spots? Doesn't have to be on our end designated in Clinton Square every Wednesday, but opening them up the other spots that are more feasible for a food truck to pull in. And I think what we've looked at, and like I said, I paid the $500. I was the first person down there. January of this year, I paid it, and I never utilized it. And to go back on a little bit of what was brought up, this year was the first time that we had food trucks in Clinton Square. The previous 2-3 years, we were down on Geddes and Fayette Street. And what that did was the largest complaint that we had from people that came for our food trucks, because we do provide something that may not be offered downtown, is that they had to get in a car from downtown, lose their parking spot to come and get something that they wanted down on Fayette and Geddes, and then they had to come back and shuffle for a spot. And that probably was around maybe 300 people every Wednesday that were actually pulling people away from downtown. So I understand we're not here to hurt the businesses. That's absolutely not what Central New York Food Truck Alliance wants to happen. What we want to do is be able to provide opportunities for our trucks to set up in various locations. I pay sales tax. I pay for permits. I pay for workers' compensation. I pay for disability insurance. And I also pay for all the appropriate permits that I need with Department of Health, the Syracuse propane permit, which is for me is only utilized when I come downtown. So, as independent food trucks, we have 19 of them. We all have the proper paperwork. We pay our sales tax, just like any other business. And we're not here to hurt any other of the downtown. But if there's a way to make these other spots more feasible for a food truck to pull in, and again, we're not a brick and mortar, and I've also called the downtown committee, and if there was a fee that I could have paid to be part of the downtown committee as a food truck, they don't offer that. It's only strictly for brick and mortars downtown. And personally, as my food truck, I'm not opposed to paying a fee. But they also have to be feasible spots. And like John said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a festival. Tuesday you have the committee, and Wednesday you have food trucks. And it does pull a lot away. And as a small business owner out in Beeville and in Cicero, I know that has an impact. But it might be important, too, that you have also a food truck that has a brick and mortar just a block away from Clinton Square, Biblos. He participates in as many as the Wednesdays. How did that affect his brick and mortar when he was set up in Clinton Square? Thank you.
I have
Questions?
a question. Yep. Would it be feasible for us to do 4 separate locations on different Wednesdays? So like the first Wednesday downtown, the second Wednesday University area, the third Wednesday over on Geddes, and then like the fourth Wednesday in a different location. Would that help?
I don't even think a Wednesday actually would have to be a date. I think Kyle Madden can do more. He's done more research on it, but there are dozens of spots that are in and around downtown that where, can easily make it into a pop-up to where maybe it's once a month at Clinton Square, another month up by the university. Walnut Park is a city-owned park. We've done events up there, especially on Fridays through the weekends, especially for a lot of sorority and fraternities. Maybe that's a once-a-month spot, but I think Kyle can touch bases more. He knows the spots and where they're outlined. But I know our organization wouldn't be opposed to that. It's, really about building relationships, and it's hard to build a relationship with a downtown business like John if we're coming in on a Wednesday, which is already thinned out, and pulling away from.
Right.
And our goal is to build relationships with the council and with our downtown neighbors.
Right. And one other thing, not just for you, just in general though, do you guys ever do this like after hours? We know with downtown, a lot of people are going out between 10 and 2 a.m. and a lot of the restaurants are closed. So is that something that you guys would consider doing? Because that way you wouldn't be taking away money from the brick and mortar if you're there overnight.
I think that brings a lot of value because if you remember for years, the federal building had Party in the Plaza on Wednesdays. And that moved away. The Crown has tried to emulate that a little bit. But my understanding from Brittany Farmer is that someone is attempting to bring back Party in the Plaza at Clinton Square on Wednesday nights now for
but
the
I'm
2020.
talking about like on
Anywhere
the weekends
else?
at nighttime. Like I don't go out
Right.
anymore. But when I used to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, everything is closed, but people are hungry. So
I think it brings value, and if the spots are valued spots to where you can pull in, and foot traffic is very important. It's important for you need to have people, and it's not because a restaurant is downtown 5 days a week serving. They're dependent on foot traffic too. But a food truck, our food is coming fresh from a brick and mortar kitchen or a commissary to a truck. And we have a short window to where that foot traffic is very important. So we need that 100 people to be able to come to our truck and to purchase. Because if not, then, safety reasons, number one, Department of Health, is that we have to go from one location, we're driving it to a location. That's why, honestly, foot traffic is so important, is because we have the food there and it's fresh, and we want to be able to move through the food in a quickly manner. It's not about saying that we want the best spots. You need to go somewhere with a food truck. And John's got a mobile unit. That's, where he goes and delivers catering. That's a perfect example. We have to get in and get out. And our goal is not to be there all day. It's just really to hit targeted areas. And we don't want to hurt the downtown. So if it's a way to move it around and make the spots that were chosen to be more feasible, not only for food trucks, but for our customer base, it'd be great.
Can I address that?
Yep.
It's my opinion that the exact location is less important than the availability of the space. So what happened in Clinton Square was the Syracuse Food Truck Association got a road closure permit, and they effectively owned the block for the day. They could then dictate which trucks parked there. They could make sure that no other vehicles were parked there. The road was closed. The challenge that we have with the existing spaces that are in the ordinance is that they're open for anybody. If you park there in the morning, I can't get a food truck in there. The same thing goes at night. I'm absolutely 100% interested in participating in something in the evening hours. I think that's a highly untapped opportunity. And you're right, there are a lot of businesses. We're talking a lot about lunch, but yeah, there's a lot of businesses who shut their doors at 10, 11 o'clock, and folks are looking for food as they come out of the bars and whatever else at night. The problem is these locations aren't necessarily near bars in a lot of cases, so people aren't going to them. They may have had a couple drinks. They're just trying to get home a lot of times, so they're not going to go halfway across the city to come find you. And then even if we could, even if their locations were closer to these establishments, they likely would be already taken by existing passenger vehicles. So that's why I'm advocating for designated spots, which is kind of a going backward, if you will, almost to an extent. But again, given the location of the designated spots in the past, that was a big challenge for us. But if the designated spots were in slightly better locations, and I think a key piece is that there's availability for more than just one truck. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. We do see more success, I believe, when we have an opportunity to have a little bit of a friendly competition and things of that nature. So if we moved it around, I think that would be fine. The challenge there would be, I think that we would find that people wouldn't necessarily know the rules, and we'd find cars parking there, even if there was marked signage. So then we have to get into ticket and tow situations and things of that nature. That's why places, like I say, like Rochester has a designated spot. It's food trucks only between specific hours. And it's theirs for the taking, and it's first come, first serve. So.
Anyone else? Yeah, John, go ahead.
I want to really quick just reiterate that, again, I don't know if anyone's against the food trucks and everyone enjoys the food trucks. I think this particular situation is like we said, lunchtime, right? We're talking about lunchtime, downtown Syracuse, captive audience, already diminished workforce. Back in May, when this kicked off, the city lost 1,000 jobs that same month. It's a big deal. And we're talking about a captive audience. We're talking about lunch. A lot of this other stuff really doesn't apply when you go outside of downtown or you go outside of the lunch hour, right? I mean, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think it does. I think this is a very unique situation. We're talking about lunch. We're talking about a captive audience. We're talking about, a diminished downtown, a downtown that is not bustling with random organic traffic. It just isn't happening. And then couple that with the whole, with captive audience, diminishing population. Why was it decided to only have 6 trucks on Wednesdays?
Space restriction.
So if you could double the space, I mean, you could do more than 6, but I see festivals down there with whatever. But would it go to 12? Here's my position. I'd feel much more comfortable if they had to open Monday through Friday in that location. Then it takes away the event, right? It takes away that big draw on Wednesday. You see what I'm saying? Even he says it himself. We see much more success when there's more than one. Right, because as you add more, you create a destination, you create an event. Okay, go there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and okay, well now it's no longer a real event, you're there. You're there, there's no anticipation, there's nothing. Again, all of that stuff is great, but not great for the brick and mortars in downtown Syracuse between the lunch hour. That's where the problem is.
I just want to know, okay, Franklin Square, there's a huge business population down there. Have you guys never thought about that area?
Where's that? Hanover?
Franklin Square.
I think all the food trucks have thought about all the areas where there's a potential audience. I think that that's what we're there to do. The problem is that the ordinance doesn't allow us to do it. We can park on private property. That's fair game. I could do that right outside. I could, if I worked out a deal with the state and parked in their lot, I could do that tomorrow. I don't have to buy your permit. I can do whatever I want. I think that's an important piece that we forget about. What we're talking about here is strictly on street, and the streets that we have are clearly listed. They're on the clerk's website. You can take a look. But the way that the law is written, we can only go where you give us permission to. That said, we'd like more. You got to remember, there isn't a ton of parking there.
But there's a lot of private businesses that I don't think would be opposed because you think about all the folks again. See, I'm thinking in the future, I'm looking at vision.
Sure.
Because like you said, 5 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to have all those folks at Bankers Health because they done broke ground.
Right.
We have all of those law offices because I live above them.
Right.
So it's a ton of folks down there. And the only thing they have down there to eat from is what, boulangerie or whatever it is. So, I mean, I'm just...
You park around that little park.
Again, they have private property that you could talk to and ask to be able to park. So that's just my thought.
I park at a number of private facilities around the city and the county every single week that I operate. Bars and breweries are a great opportunity. We do a lot of corporate lunches. I know that the other food trucks who are here do corporate lunches all the time.
I'm just trying to think of what America said, to find some balance, because I think it's all great, but we define some balance.
I'm not, we can stand together, I don't want to impose upon your time. It's just, I'm hopeful that there will be a follow-up meeting where we can discuss a lot of these details in more depth. If it would be helpful, again, in addition to best practices that we looked at from other upstate and across the nation communities, happy to share that, but we also have all the pedestrian counts for downtown Syracuse. So being able to show where there are the high foot traffic areas, when that is occurring, I think would be something that would be help inform potential locations where, again, the food trucks, because they are an event, they do spur more activity. So being able to more fully utilize those types of events as a way to draw traffic, either to underutilized areas or to provide food truck access where there currently is a food desert and there's not a bricks and mortar business. I think the Ladybug Lunchbox is a perfect example. 2004-ish, maybe, is when we initially had reached out, because the whole east side of downtown Syracuse, we could not get a bricks and mortar restaurant to go in there. So you have all of these, to your point, President Hudson, all of these employees that would love something a little bit closer if they don't have that long for a lunch break. And that's been a great location to have a food truck establishment. And that's something, too, where, again, trying to find that balance of you've got these bricks and mortar businesses that are contributing to property taxes and all the other fees to be here year-round, but also trying to make room for new opportunity and identifying where those locations are going to be most beneficial for everyone.
There was one other point that was mentioned earlier about not being near existing restaurants and whatnot. The mention was 250 feet. I'll just remind us that Clinton Square, with the exception of the Atrium's restaurant, is not within 250 feet of any other existing restaurant. And the ordinance, as it's written, currently states that we can't be within 100. So we're happy to abide by these type of things and make sure that we're being good corporate partners. But I've just done some math in my head since we've been sitting here. I venture that food trucks generated between $2 and $3 million in sales last year, generating nearly $200,000 in sales taxes. It's not as if
That's not Clinton Square. You're just saying in general.
that's entire. Yeah, Clinton Square is really tough.
Right.
Again, we're
right.
Collectively. Yeah.
In the last argument, I'll just simply make is folks choose to eat at our businesses and chose not to eat at theirs, and so I think that individuals have an options, and I think that all we're doing is providing, like I say, economic opportunity to all of our small businesses to provide them with the ample opportunities to be as successful as possible. Our trucks are, I think, very successful. We just want more opportunity to be a part of the downtown community, and if we can become part of the downtown committee, we'll do that too. But thank you again for having this meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And just kind of in closing, I would just say, obviously, very open to feedback for anyone that's not here today or anyone, so my email is mgreen@syrgov.net. I'll leave cards. So for anyone you might know that wasn't able to make it for whatever reason, please feel free to have them reach out. And I'll also stay after. So, okay. Anything else?
What is the next step, or did we just come here to talk?
So right now the law is, there's no proposed change to the law.
No next step.
There's,
It's just a pacifying time. We had to miss our business. We're trying to work and just come here.
so the point of this meeting, I'll tell,
Make
John,
the community think that you're going to try.
so the point of this meeting was to get feedback from the community. Within the last hour, there's not been a law written while we've been sitting here, but the point of this is to say we're going to take feedback and then figure out what the next step would be. So do we have a law right now? No, we don't, but we are open to feedback.
How can we access the data you guys collected from your surveys?
I don't have a survey.
You didn't do them?
No, I don't have a staff doing a survey, John.
You emailed me saying you guys are going to do some stuff.
No.
I'll forward you the email to remind you.
Thanks, John. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Just a couple briefings.
We'll get it worked out. I just have.
Yeah, and I'm happy to meet anytime.